Well, America's shrinking middle class. A new study from the Pew Research Center finding that U.S. cities are becoming too expensive for middle-class residents, causing them to move farther away. Steve Moore and Scott Martin are back with us. So, Steve, it looks like there's another example of the middle class getting crunched. Why is that happening?
Yeah, especially in cities, it's kind of a conundrum because, like right now, David, I'm in Denver. Denver is booming right now, as many big cities are. I mean, New York's doing pretty well in terms of the financial sector of these cities. Miami, cities like Nashville, San Francisco doing really well. The problem is the middle class can't afford to live there any longer. And I blame it on what I call the RST of cities: regulations, schools, and taxes. The regulations are too hefty. The schools are stink in most inner cities, and you can't raise a family there, and the taxes make it just unaffordable.
Scott, one of the great things about this country, or at least has been in the past, is mobility. People have options to move around, not only in income mobility, but also physical mobility. You don't have as much of that now as you used to, right?
No, you don't. And I think, unfortunately, David, let's put it this way. You don't have the choice to use that mobility, let's say. The reason that you're mobile now is because your job, I guess, to Steve's point, is moving out of that city. And I'll stick with his premise about the RST. I would throw in the fact that a lot of these cities are just mismanaged, David. I mean, true and near and dear to my heart, Chicago, Illinois, where taxes are on the rise, right. Crime is out of control, yeah. There's all this disenfranchised businesses, yet the city says we're broke. So who wants to live here? Not a lot of people.
Right. Well, crime is a huge issue. We shouldn't forget that. But, Steve, again, it just seems like there's some economic vitality that is missing as a secret sauce in this economy.
It is, and just one thing that's interesting about cities, it is true that the middle class is tending to move out of cities, but there's a big distinction right now between cities in blue states and cities in red states. So if you go to a lot of these red state cities like Austin, Texas, or Dallas, or Houston, or Miami, those cities are actually doing pretty well, and the middle class can afford to live in those cities. But it's amazing. So compare San Francisco with Dallas.
Right.
The cost of living in Dallas is less than one-half of what it is in San Francisco.
Well, Scott, you live in one of the most crunched places of all in Chicago, or in the Chicago area. I mean, how is that area affected? Are businesses beginning to die out there? Are there fewer startups? What?
Yeah, people are leaving, David, and they're going to neighbors. I mean, Indiana is one of those states or those areas that Steve mentioned that is actually getting a new population, because you just jump across the border and all of a sudden you have a different tax, you definitely have a different regulatory environment, you have a different situation that businesses are looking for. So it's not hard these days, if you have the means to do so, to leave some of these tough states and go somewhere that you're going to be treated better as a businessman and as a taxpayer.
Steve, I'm thinking of something that Governor Perry used to say, former governor of Texas, who of course ran briefly for president this time. He said it's not rocket science when he was talking about the success of Texas. He says you just do what you said. You lower the regulations, you lower the taxes, and you get businesses moving in. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, we've seen businesses after business leaving California, and it's interesting because California, which is the liberal paradise, right? I mean, but it has become the state that has more income inequality than any other state. It's a great state to live in if you're really rich, and if you're poor, because they have pretty good welfare benefits. The middle class is getting crunched here. Just one statistic to think about: every single day in America, David, 1,000 people on net are leaving blue states, and they're moving to red states like Texas.
Interesting. Very interesting. It'll have an effect in the election. Steve and Scott, thank you very much, guys.